So here you can talk about some of the benefits and results in terms of when people go through this kind of training, and what are the typical things that they what kind of result they get, or what kind of benefits that they walk away with.
Just like how just now what you said about, how can they become aware of their own patterns, like from being reactive to responsive. I think that is the kind of like big gap that they need to overcome. So Enneagram helps, at least for myself and also my clients, is that we helps to be aware of the fears and desires that drives our results and change. So we cannot, a lot of times is we kind of want to suppress it, or like we deny it when we have fears, and we try to kind of put a false image up there to say that, okay, I can do this, and pump ourselves up, right? But that doesn't last. If we do not embrace, we do not acknowledge it in the first place, it's going to continue to control us and drive in a direction that we didn't want. So Enneagram really brings out the deeper, more subconscious kind of pattern, and like the red buttons, like you say. And the areas that we have been in denial for the longest time, that itself for me was very transformative. And Enneagram also allow me and my clients to appreciate the leadership and team working styles of others. So it is really about each of us has patterns. I always tell my clients that, within moral and legal boundary, everything is preference. Meaning that there's no right way or wrong way. If your boss says that this is the right template to use, what it is trying to say is this is the preferred template to use. That's what it's all about. So if we kind of look beyond or look past right and wrong, I think a more useful discussion is really about appreciating and what is useful, the most useful thing to do right now. So appreciating the styles of others is very crucial in building relationships. And also
and also just to add on to that fact that sometimes that when we see people, perhaps maybe a particular type that has got a need to be able to get things right in a certain way, from the Enneagram, it gives you a very scientific and psychologically sound explanation. That's how I would say it, right? Because in the without the sign, we just tell me that this person is a pain in the ass or pain in the neck and everything else. But once we understand the psychic structure, the psychological structures behind it, we begin to understand that they are like that because they come from a worldview of this particular way of thinking and what their value systems are. And that's how they bring value to any interaction or in any organization. So what happens is that when you understand it, you are less likely to react because you understand that's where they're coming from. That's an explanation for that.
And that is a kind of wonderful point where you start to not take things so personally. Because a lot of times people will say, how can learn not to take things personally? That is when you have a wisdom or the understanding of why the other person behaved that way. And that therefore allows you to empathize with the struggles of others, because we start to realize that, so different personalities have different stress behaviors. Not every stress behavior is a breakdown or throwing at things, Some behaviors are so quiet. The stress behavior is that so quiet, so withdrawn, and out of sight, out of mind. So that was very lightening.
The problem is some people are so relaxed. Their relaxed manner is a stress for a lot of people.
Exactly. And if you know that they are coming from their own patterns and reference point, it becomes very funny to watch. But well, knowing doesn't make it easier, I would say. So ultimately, building trust and improve teamwork, and that is what makes performance possible.
So that's the and we do want to be able to kind of keep the pace. So let me talk about the NLP side of things. The NLP side of things, the takeaways are a little bit more micro and much more direct compared to what you have just shared on the other side. NLP talked about walking away with certain abilities, and you learn about awareness and so on and so forth, but you actually break it down to speech patterns, specific actions and behaviors, certain way of holding your non-verbal communication, certain way of being able to energize your emotion, or be able to utilize your bodily energy and direct them into a specific way of getting results. So these are some of the things that we talk about, that people actually talk about, they walk away with. And many of the people who are listening tonight, they can actually testify to this, which is asking you through a discovery questions
Yes.
that are based on linguistic studies. And they become much more aware, mindful about their own mindset, choosing to respond more productively. They become more aware about their own thoughts, their own feelings, so that they know that whether this is going to be what they really want, or is this going to be something that's going to be useful to the result that we are going after? Is this thing that I do is going to make a difference, add to the solution, or adds to the problem? Increase confidence. Yeah.
In fact, one of my biggest breakthrough in my personal discovery is actually using the linguistic in NLP, where I change my inner dialogue, the way I talk to myself.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that was so useful.
Yeah. So you're asking yourself those useful questions in a sense, and become aware of your own patterns. Then increase confidence in orchestrating your emotion and action. And I think this is an area that outside of NLP, right? Prior to NLP, right? I hear a lot of people, no, we got some kind of emotion, or they ask you to go and meditate. Sure, I know that meditate can help you to calm down your emotion, clear your mind, and everything else. But I think this whole idea about putting one particular approach and to solve all problems, I'm not saying that meditation is not useful, but to put everything into the so-called the bag of meditation, right? Sometimes we do need to be able to have a little bit more conscious confidence that we can do certain things, learn certain things, and be able to orchestrate it, turn it on, turn it off. We have the ability to do so. And that's where NLP spend quite a bit of time talking about being able to channel your emotion, because your emotion is actually driving your thoughts and your actions a lot of times. Yeah, okay. And then the last one is turn what they know into strategic actions so that they can be able to execute it at the right time and the right place. This is my favorite because I know that a lot of time people, I mean, at least in this day and age, right? People know a lot.
Yeah.
Especially those people who do a lot of research or whatever. Maybe they watch a lot of YouTube videos. They can talk a good game, but there is a big difference between knowing something in your head and turning it into actions. What is the process that enables us to be able to turn thinking into action? And that's what I guess I'm paid for in organization with people, individual and organized, is to turn their favorite model of thinking into action. And so that process is actually neuro-linguistic programming in a sense. So that's kind of the takeaway and the benefits of it. And I guess the part that I want to perhaps maybe even share one personal story that I can think of right now. One that comes to mind in terms of modeling excellence is a short one. Is I'm asked to be able to go in and model what we call commanders, military commanders. We're talking about the basic military training center. And it was a memorable modeling. It's part of the OD work that we're talking about. We need to be able to work with people at several levels of management. Even though we're looking at one particular level, which is the commanders, the people who are actually 18-year-olds, who are leading another bunch of 18-year-olds, but they seem to have the so-called leadership quality, and they are doing a very good job. So that took about 2 years, and by the time when I'm finished with this project, right, and when I left 3 or 5 years later, they are still using some of the template that I created. Essentially, to say that leadership, right, it's not just the fact of someone is born like that, or they have a certain form of charisma or whatever, but they have a specific way of, they have certain principles that they rely on to guide their thoughts on how to assess situation and know what's right or wrong. And then that principle of thinking is able to be translated into certain core skill sets. And they are able to turn those core skill sets into specific behaviors at the right time in the right place. So that whole project took about 6 to 9 months, 6 months to be able to come into testing and finally hand it to the organization, and they have a handful of what we call trainers selected by the military to take over the program and teach it. And when I was away, I just go back and look at their program, just make sure that the integrity has been maintained and so on and so forth. So that's one that comes to mind. That's most rewarding because you are able to create something that will last, and you actually see that it's implemented at the organizational level. So I can
at a national
really
level.
that. Yeah. So that's my experience, and perhaps do you have anything that you want to share in terms of your own personal so-called experience working with Enneagram?
Yes, lots. I think one most memorable.
The problem is that we have a lot. I got this.
I think the most memorable one is when I actually use it for the culture, and how to make their core values come alive with their leaders' NLE profiles together. And we kind of make it go live, because a lot of times in organizations, the culture is a very static thing. It's something that you describe, you don't really live up to it in that sense. But with the HR consulting I do, I am able to infuse and integrate the core values with the NLE profile of the leaders, the whole leadership team, and therefore devise and develop systems and processes to complement it. And at the same time, provide a more lively narrative that the leaders can relate to. So that is very interesting.
Yeah. Okay.